Hey, really the only thing that gon' be normal is distribution. Normal folks gon' infuse some. Optimize your lineups and you feed the rest, you mute them. Turning it up, these numbers are loud. Peeping this game from a nimbus is wild. Making it rain. While I embrace all this risk, I'm insane. Talking about that best bill, I'm the best till into the next well. Guess I got next still. Best bill, I'm the best till into the next world.
And welcome into week 17. It's championship week, everyone. Aren't you excited? I'm excited. I'm ready to roll. There are a couple of championships that I'm in. I'm also in the Pomeranian Superflex Final 278. So it's the only underdog championship round that I'm in, but it's at least for, a 1 of 5 chances to get at least $1,000 in that tournament. So it's going to be a lot of fun sweating it out with y'all here in week 17. And if you play in week 18, put that in the comments so I know, how to prepare for content for next week. I don't imagine a lot of you do, but maybe more of you do than what I am anticipating. So throw that in the comments section. Let me know if that is something that you are planning on doing. Nevertheless, I'm here for week 17 to talk some fantasy football tips, stardom, sit-em, strategy advice. I'll also be throwing in some videos. I have some videos that I'll be posting either late tonight or tomorrow. Depends on when I get to them. It takes a little bit to edit these videos, but I hopefully y'all are liking the 2-minute blurb. Should I start X player threads that I have been creating the past few weeks? It seems to be hitting pretty well on the YouTube channel. So yeah, let me know what y'all are thinking about the content. I am planning for next week to do a live drafters playoff best ball draft. So if y'all are into that, I'd love to get y'all into doing some best ball drafts and seeing what we can try our hand at. Underdog, unfortunately, is not available here in Michigan. So, unfortunately, that's just how it is. But hopefully they'll come back here in 2023. Maybe that'll be their New Year's present to me. Nevertheless, we're going to go with some drafters playoff drafting next week. If y'all don't tell me that you have some week 18 players starting lineups, because it can get really wonky and really crazy in week 18. That's one of the reasons why fantasy football has moved away from playing a lot of season-long teams. As we know, there's just so many people on the injury report, so many questionables. Derrick Henry's not expected to play in week 17 even, and then we'll see what happens in week 18. But you could see a lot of teams sitting their quarterbacks or sitting their running backs or wide receivers if they anticipate them to be, playing for the playoffs. Or Derek Carr, not expected to play. He's expected to be inactive against San Francisco. That was the surprising news of the day, is that Derek Carr, who, is the quarterback 15 on the season, 61% completion percentage, 24 passing touchdowns, 14 interceptions, 3,500 passing yards. He had finished as the quarterback 13 or better in 4 of the last 6 games, but 16 for 30 against Pittsburgh and 3 interceptions is not going to get it done. This was the second to 3 interception game on the season for Derek Carr. So against San Francisco in week 17, it's going to be really ugly. It's going to be Jarrett Stidham expected to go. So yeah, throw your start sit questions for your championship week into the comments. I'm here to answer them. A lot of you have been asking them in the comment section of the YouTube channel, so make sure you throw them into the comment section. I love answering your questions. I know you have them. I see all the comments on the videos that I post. So make sure that you toss those my way, and I'll be happy to answer them, or even we can chat about some of the championships that you're in. It's fine by me. That's why we're here. We're going to enjoy, preparing for week 17. This is going to be the last full week of content. As I mentioned, unless there's a strong demand for week 18 content, I'm going to focus and shift into some drafters, best ball tournament, And then as we get into, playoffs, we'll talk some DFS. And then during the off season, I'll be doing some player studies as well. And then we'll talk rookies, we'll talk draft strategy, rookie drafts for your dynasty leagues, rookie rankings. I'll be happy to go through all of those. And as this channel continues to grow, there's been a request from some of the listeners and viewers to create a Discord. So I'm going to look into creating that for y'all in the off season. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a good time. And I really look forward to continuing not just the in-season, but also the off-season content for y'all. Okay. Randy Miller asks, should I start Matt Prater confidently in a dome? Well, let's pull up the kicker rankings, Randy. So Matt Prater, yikes. He is the consensus kicker 24 on the week, but he's finished as the kicker 2 and kicker 6 each of the last 2 weeks, 14 fantasy points for against Denver and against Tampa Bay. And Arizona against Atlanta, this is going to be one of those, sneaky, like barn burner type of games. Yeah, you don't mind playing Matt Prater in a dome, right? So Matt Prater right now is a player that I am willing to play. Let me see if I can pull up my kicker rankings here. One moment while I do that. Yeah, in the meantime, I was knocked out of like my home league this past week. It was not a lot of fun. I'm obviously stalling to get my kicker rankings up. Week 17 kicker rankings done, and why did it not save? Okay, it's not saving. That's bizarre, but okay. Nevertheless, maybe I pull it up on my phone. It'll load there. But should I start Matt Prater in a dome? I mean, a dome. Prater has been successful. I believe he was on the Detroit Lions for a number of years, and then now he's moved to Arizona. So he is a dome kicker, and he's been hot as of late. You want to get your kickers hot. You don't want to hear that, a kicker has been struggling as of late. And like, that's why Evan McPherson dropped down in my rankings. Like initially I had him at like kicker 4, kicker 5 on the week. And then I dropped him down to kicker 11 because there were reports coming out of New England that he was missing kicks. And in fact, Evan McPherson missed a field goal and an extra point. So there we go. Let's see. Week 17 projections, and rankings. We're looking at Matt Prater. Let me find him. Yeah, so kicker 17 right now is where I have him tentatively. He's kicker, what did I say, 24 on Fantasy Pros. So I am higher than consensus on Matt Prater. Confident? I don't know, but in a dome, it could be worse. Okay. Should I start the Giants defense? Well, the Giants this week square off against the Indianapolis Colts. And I mean, yeah, you're going to start the Giants defense. Nick Foles threw 3 interceptions, and the Giants secondary is pretty strong. They're one of the better secondaries in limiting wide receiver fantasy points. So I have the New York Giants, as a top 10 type of defense. So yeah, I'm fine with starting the Giants defense this week. Go Pack, go. Thanks, Doris. Appreciate you. And if you're new to the channel and you like the content, make sure you hit that red subscribe button right there. Right there. Hit that red subscribe button. Really appreciate it. Supports the channel. Appreciate all of you. Okay, Carlos Godinez. Carlos, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. But do we have Gardner Minshew or Mike White? Well, the consensus on Minshew is that he's the quarterback 12, and Mike White, the consensus is he's quarterback 16. And when we're in that like 12 to 16 tier, I tend to lean toward the sports books. Which game could turn into more of a shootout? And if we look at this Philadelphia game against the Saints, the over under for that game is 43.5. So, I mean, it's not going to be a barn burner, but it's also not going to be, one of those low games. Like the Dallas Cowboys Tennessee Titans game is under 40. The Colts Giants game is under 39 fantasy points. But this Jets Seattle game, 42.5. I'm leaning toward Minshew in this. If I'm picking between Minshew or White, the consensus is there, the points are there, and the Jets are only 1.5 point favorites, whereas the Philadelphia Eagles are 5.5 point favorites at home. So yeah, I'm going with Minshew over White. Appreciate you. All right, Caleb popping in. Thanks, Caleb, for taking a moment, saying hi. Godwin, Davante Adams, or Mike Williams. Oh man. Davante Adams, I don't know if you can play him this week. I mean, you might have to, but the fact that we're asking this question, there is no way that Davante Adams is, he was previously the wide receiver 4 in consensus before this Derek Carr benching. Now I'm more of like, give me Chris Godwin. Give me Chris Godwin, who over the last, since week 6, every single week, at least 8 targets. And at least, he had 36 receiving yards back in week 9, but 7 receptions in that game. And, I think that Chris Godwin is less likely to bust with Tom Brady at quarterback than Jarrett Stidham is going to have Davante Adams bust. And so that's how I'm viewing it that way. Mike Williams right now gets the LA Rams. And the LA Rams are a mid-tier type of secondary. Williams 4 for 76 and 4 for 67 each of the last 2 weeks. If he falls in the end zone, those stat lines look a lot different. He looks like a back end to mid-pack wide receiver 2. I'm going Chris Godwin if I'm picking between the 3. Davante Adams is just so scary, but Mike Williams, I prefer even over Davante Adams, I think, this week. That's how I'm going to lean, given how bad it is. Carlos is also asking Waller or Conklin. How the mighty have fallen, right? The fact that we're asking about Darren Waller versus Tyler Conklin, right? Before this Derek Carr news, Waller was the tight end 9 in consensus. And Waller is, not really moved that much. But, like, I'm moving, Taysom Hill over Darren Waller, Tyler Higbee over Darren Waller. I don't know if I can get down to Tyler Conklin, because if I'm Jarrett Stidham and I am a quarterback who's thrown, no more than 13 passes in a game in my career, NFL career, like he's had 3 different games of double-digit pass attempts in his career, Jarrett Stidham is going to lean on his tight end. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. And if they fall in the end zone, like Waller has probably the best chance to do so. I don't think I'm falling that far to Conklin, but Conklin does have a positive matchup against Seattle. Seattle gives up, I think, the second most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Still, Conklin has finished no better than the tight end 14 since week 9. I think Waller gets there. It's going to be ugly. And the fact that we have to ask is it's an ugly situation, Carlos. So I don't envy that start-sit decision, but if I'm picking, it's going to be Waller. Best of luck with that too. It's not beautiful. Jose Bedoy, Algier or Christian Kirk at the flex. And I'm going to go Tyler Algier pretty comfortably. It doesn't matter the format. It could be half PPR, it could be full PPR. It doesn't matter because Tyler Algier has just been crushing as of late. Going into week 16, Tyler Algier was the number 1 PFF graded rushing. The number 1 PFF rushing grade among all running backs from week 12 through 15. And he finished 18 for 74, had 4 receptions for 43 yards in the week 16 game at Baltimore. Baltimore, a tough front 7, but still was able to finish with more than 4 yards per carry in that game. It's clear that Tyler Algier is the back you want in this Atlanta backfield. He is the running back 31 on the season. His consensus right now is running back 23, and I think that's too low. He gets Arizona, who just got torched by both Leonard Fournette and and Rachaad White. We remember Rachaad White scored a touchdown in this game. So Allgeier or Christian Kirk, I'm going pretty comfortably Allgeier. Like the Jaguars really don't have anything to play for in this game. And, Christian Kirk has been boom bust. Like, could Kirk come through for you? Possibly. But Houston gives up some of the fewest fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Now you're like, but Bradley, why do they give up some of the fewest fantasy points to wide receivers when their secondary is legit bad? Like their PFF graded is one of the worst secondaries. It's because the volume of passes does not go against Houston. Houston allows some of the fewest pass attempts in the NFL. Why? Because they give up so many yards rushing. So many yards rushing. So we could see a Christian Kirk game like go 4 for 60. And he disappoints because Tyler Allgeier, rushes for 80 yards and also catches 3 passes for 20 yards. And then Allgeier also possibly gets the end zone. Whereas, Christian Kirk hasn't scored a touchdown since week 12. So that's how I'm viewing this Allgeier versus Christian Kirk. Give me Allgeier with a safer volume. Allgeier, has been really coming on of late, and he's played well. He's played efficiently. I like that. Trevor Lawrence, Rodgers, or Goff. You're starting Jared Goff this week. This is my ride or die in week 17. I've been touting Jared Goff for weeks and weeks, for months and months. For a year, I've looked forward to this game between the Detroit Lions and the Chicago Bears at home for Detroit in a must-win scenario against a very, very bad defense. And yes, Jared Goff, last time that he played Chicago, he finished as the quarterback 22, but he had 15 fantasy points, which isn't going to kill you. 19 of 26, 236 yards. This was at about the time where Chicago was like still figuring out what they had on defense. And I think this was around the trade deadline, maybe right after the trade deadline, after they traded, Roquan Smith. But there is a singular defensive back who has draft capital projected to start for the Chicago Bears. Jared Goff, over his last 4 games, 3 of them, he's been a top 4 quarterback. Aaron Rodgers has finished as a top 12 quarterback this season once. Jared Goff's ceiling is significantly higher. Okay, so I'm in on Jared Goff torching the Chicago Bears at home in a must-win game. Jameson Williams is there. DJ Chark has been crushing as of late. 3 of the last 4 games for Chark, at least 90 receiving yards. And of course, Amon-Ra St. Brown will get you your 7 for 70 on 10 targets, and maybe he falls in the end zone. And also DeAndre Swift. There's just so many weapons for Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions in this game. I'm so in. This is ridiculous. And no, I don't have my Detroit bias on because I live, 25 miles outside of the city of Detroit. But there we go. And then your question, like, do I start Trevor Lawrence? Like, this game does not matter. This game does not matter to the Jacksonville Jaguars, right? The momentum argument, I suppose. And Doug Peterson, I think, has sat starters in the past when he was on the Eagles in games that were pretty inconsequential, because it's ultimately going to come down to the Jacksonville game, week 18 against Tennessee. Okay. So I think that Trevor Lawrence, gets out to a strong start and then just cruise the rest of the way. As I said before, the Houston Texans give up a ton of fantasy points to opposing running backs. This is projected to be a Travis Etienne game. And I can see Trevor Lawrence having a strong first half, but then just riding the wave with Etienne and JaMychal Hasty and Snoop Connor and whoever else are the backup running backs near the end of the game against the Houston Texans. So Trevor Lawrence, like the consensus is very high on him this week. He's a quarterback 7, and I get that Houston is bad, but I think the game script is not going to go in favor of seeing like a spike week from Trevor Lawrence, despite the fact that we've seen Trevor Lawrence be a top 5 quarterback 3 of the last 5 weeks. Against a Houston team that doesn't give up a lot of fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks for the reasons I've mentioned earlier, not because they're good, but because the game scripts don't favor opposing quarterbacks getting spike weeks. All right, Randy Miller with the testimonials. Thanks again so much for all the help over the course of the season. Thank you, Randy, for tuning in, asking your questions, and be like Randy and make sure that you are dropping your questions or comments into the comments section here on YouTube or on Twitch. Sammy, I see you on Twitch. Thanks for your patience as we get to these questions. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit that red subscribe button right there. It really helps the channel. We've grown from a humble beginning of about 55 subscribers at the beginning of the season to, we're over 600 subscribers right now. So I really, really appreciate y'all jumping in, being a part of this community during this year. And I'm looking to continue to pump out content for y'all as we continue on in the off season so that you get to be a better prepared fantasy manager for the next season. You are going to be all in on it. Make sure you're hitting that red subscribe button because it really, really helps the channel and also will help you become better at thinking through fantasy. Okay. Carlos asks Mike Williams or DJ Moore. So Mike Williams, I've mentioned, is a pretty safe mid-pack, a wide receiver too. DJ Moore gets Tampa Bay, right? And Tampa Bay is usually pretty tough against opposing secondaries. But last time that DJ Moore played Tampa, 7 catches, 69 yards, had a receiving touchdown, finishes the wide receiver 8 that week. And we've seen some good games from DJ Moore as of late. 3 of the last 4 games, he's been a wide receiver 13 or better, at least 16 fantasy points in half PPR, at least 73 receiving yards, and at least 6 targets in 3 of the last 4 games. And DJ Moore has had no fewer than 5 targets in every game except that bizarre week 14 goose egg. So, DJ Moore, I still am leaning toward Mike Williams, even though it's against the Rams. But, DJ Moore is still a pretty nice play, and I'm probably starting DJ Moore over like Christian Kirk, and yeah, I think that's a good spot. And I also wonder if we can start DJ Moore even over Mike Evans. So I think it's a lot closer than where the consensus is having DJ Moore more right now. Consensus wide receiver 22. I bumped up DJ Moore tentatively, though, like wide receiver 19 right now. Williams, for me, is wide receiver 16, 17 in that range, so slightly ahead. But Williams, I do give the lean over DJ Moore for this week. All right, Doris asks, non-PPR, who deflects? Godwin, Brian Robinson, Algier, Pacheco, or Jerry Jeudy? And Doris says, I'm leaning toward Robinson, especially if Gibson can't play. Let's listen to this. Doris is onto something here. We're talking about Brian Robinson, the running back for the Washington Commanders. The Commanders made news earlier today that they are, seems forever ago, but they are benching Taylor Heineke and instead rolling with Carson Wentz against the Browns in week 17. And right now, Brian Robinson, man, oh man, we are looking for Robinson. He is the consensus running back 21. And I think that's too low in half PPR. Before this San Francisco game where he had 22 carries for 58 yards, he still got the volume. That's really nice. Brian Robinson, running back 13 against Philadelphia, 26 for 86 and a touchdown. Finishes the running back 4 against Atlanta, 18 for 105 and a touchdown. He also had 2 receptions for 20 yards in that game. And the running back 17 against the New York Giants, 21 for 96 and 12 fantasy points. The Cleveland Browns give up the second most fantasy points to opposing running backs. They're an extremely plus matchup. This is an outlier type of plus matchup. And if you want a touchdown, I think in non-PPR, you're going to get a lot of yards from Brian Robinson. We've seen at least 89 rushing yards in 3 of the last 4 games for Brian Robinson. And, I love the volume for Robinson. It's a plus matchup. There's touchdown possible upside. So I like in non-PPR, the Brian Robinson take. I do like Tyler Algier as well. Tyler Algier is a player that I've talked ad nauseum about. He gets Arizona, who's been torched, and is a really positive matchup as well. But if Gibson sits, I think that's going to be the lean, right? And that's what Doris is saying here. So we're monitoring this Gibson situation. I would put Algier over Robinson if Gibson does play, but if Gibson doesn't play, and we're hearing that there is a sprain for Antonio Gibson. If Gibson doesn't play, I think it's pretty clearly Brian Robinson. Steve Wilson, Fields or Trevor Lawrence? And I know that we were all burned in week 16 from Justin Fields, right? Justin Fields finishing as, the quarterback 25 in week 16. That was his worst finish since week 4 against the Giants, where he finishes quarterback 26 with 10 fantasy points. But this is a totally different matchup against the Detroit Lions. The Lions just gave up 290 rushing yards to the running backs for the Carolina Panthers. And the last time that Justin Fields played against the Lions, 147 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns, if I recall correctly. He finishes the quarterback 1 on the week, 167 passing yards. That's not where Justin Fields makes his money, though. It's the rushing. And Justin Fields, I think, is in that top 3 consensus quarterback ranking. You are ranking Fields way ahead of Lawrence. As I mentioned earlier in the live stream, I am concerned about the way the game script will play out for Lawrence near the end. So I'm very much suggesting you start Justin Fields over Trevor Lawrence. Slammy is asking Treylon Burks or Garrett Wilson in the flex. And this is, Slammy, you're giving me an easy one. You're giving me a layup, buddy. That's Garrett Wilson by far. Treylon Burks, the quarterback for tomorrow is going to be Malik Willis for the Tennessee Titans. And, in the last game, Treylon Burks, 0 receptions on 2 targets. He had 15 rushing yards, and that was all. That was it for Treylon Burks. And Malik Willis hasn't thrown for 100 yards in any of his 3 starts this year. Whereas Garrett Wilson, in the games where Mike White has started, Garrett Wilson has been the wide receiver 2. I'm getting it loaded here. The wide receiver 2, the wide receiver 9, the wide receiver 29. Yeah, you're starting Garrett Wilson with a lot of confidence over Treylon Burks. Yeah, that was an easy one. Thanks, Slammy. I appreciate the easy ones. It allows me to build on my confidence, Carlos, thank you for the help. Yeah, appreciate it, Carlos. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit that red subscribe button down there, okay? Thanks for everyone, too, who's been tuning in. And if you haven't, if you're new to the live stream and you like the content and it's been helpful to you, make sure you hit that red subscribe button for sure. All right. Cedric, pick 2 between Etienne, Keenan Allen, and A.J. Brown. Okay. And, A.J. Brown right now is a little questionable. He's dealing with a knee issue. He's limited in practice Wednesday. We haven't seen any issues for the knees this season so far for A.J. Brown. This is the first time that at least I'm hearing of it. He was limited in practice. It is Wednesday. If we hear more concerns about it, fine, whatever. But, A.J. Brown has over 100 receiving yards 3 of the last 4 games. And in the game he didn't during that 4-game span, 4 for 70 and a touchdown, 15 fantasy points. You were not unhappy with A.J. Brown. Keenan Allen is just going to be peppered with PPR points, right? If it's a full PPR, I'm going Keenan Allen and A.J. Brown. But if in a half PPR, I think Etienne and A.J. Brown are the better plays, right? Keenan Allen hasn't scored in the last 3 weeks. He has been a top 20 wide receiver, a top 21 wide receiver each of the last 5 weeks. So I like Keenan Allen in PPR. Even in half PPR, Keenan Allen is fine, but there's no upside. We haven't seen a top 10, a top 5, but Keenan Allen in full PPR, He has had 12, 8, and 11 receptions each of the last 3 games, and he's had 86 or more receiving yards each of the last 4 games, and in 5 of the last 6 games. So I really, really do like Etienne or Cedric, Keenan Allen in full PPR. I like Keenan Allen, okay, over Travis Etienne. And I like A.J. Brown as well. So those are the 2 in the full PPR, Cedric. That's how I would go with. Serendipity Trick Shots, sup? Appreciate you jumping in, Serendipity Trick Shots. I saw you in the comments in a few of the other videos that I posted. And y'all, if you're new to my channel, I post a poop ton of videos on players. So if you are looking for, what does he say about this player this week? Like, there's a more than 50% chance that I probably have given you a video about the player. Okay. And if there are particular player requests, I prioritize I'll be uploading the Thursday players either tonight or tomorrow morning. So check those out as they get uploaded. That's why you want to hit that subscribe button. But put your comments and questions in the comments of the videos. And Serendipity Trick Shots, I need you to testify here. I get back to you. As soon as I can, sometimes within the hour, sometimes within, a couple hours, but sometimes within minutes. There have been people who have commented and I've been able to get back real quick. So that's where I've been at. Appreciate you jumping in though. And the question, Serendipity Trick Shots, I can start 2. Cooper, I assume Amari Cooper, Hollywood, DJ Moore, Christian Watson, I assume, and Zay Jones. Thanks for the stream and the advice. Absolutely, Serendipity Trick Shots. That's what I'm here for. If I'm picking between these players, I would go with DJ Moore as the definite for sure play in this. We're not starting Hollywood Brown. Let's just clear the air there. Marquise Hollywood Brown right now is the consensus wide receiver 34 in Fantasy Pros, and I don't get that. I just don't get why he's that high. I get that Colt McCoy is back or projected to be back for the Arizona Cardinals, but Marquise Brown has not finished as inside the top 40 of wide receivers over the last 4 games that he's played, despite six targets or more in each of the last 4 games for Hollywood. I am not starting Hollywood Brown against Atlanta. There's just Nuke Hopkins is there. James Conner is getting a lot of touches as well. Greg Dortch had a wonderful game against Tampa Bay. And Marquise Hollywood Brown has just been a disappointment since he's come back from IR, partly because of his play, but also partly because Kyler Murray's not there anymore. So I'm not starting Hollywood. Watson is the possible other. I'm picking essentially between Watson and Cooper as my other one, Serendipity Trick Shots. I would start Watson over Cooper if I knew that Watson was full go against Minnesota. If I knew he was full go. But that's the question. He missed practice on Wednesday. He's considered day-to-day. So I think that I'm going with Amari Cooper. Cooper seems to have progressed from his hip injury. He gets Washington. He's the consensus wide receiver 25, but he's coming off of a 10-target, 6-reception game in some of the worst weather that you can think of in Cleveland against the New Orleans Saints. 6 for 72, 10 fantasy points. And now he gets Washington in a game where, the Cleveland Browns can play a little bit of a spoiler, right? They can, put a dent into Carson Wentz and his confidence. And we saw how Wentz imploded, last year, week 18. So you wonder if Cleveland is just going to let Deshaun Watson loose against Washington. Cooper is the wide receiver 13 on the year. He has 1,004 receiving yards, 73 for 125 of receiving, 7 touchdowns on the year. And I think that given the Watson injury, I'm going to pick Cooper over Watson. There we go. All right, Steve has subscribed, and if you're new and you like the content and this has been helpful for you, make sure that you're being like Steve and hit that subscribe button. Appreciate you, Steve, and the rest of y'all who have subscribed this season. It's been a lot of fun jumping in with you, building this community, and having fun in the live streams. This is great. And then, of course, make sure you're subscribed because next week I'm going to be doing some playoff best ball, and we're going to go on to Drafters fantasy, and we're going to do some live best ball playoff drafting and talk some strategy and talks through some of the things I'm reading through and in the research I'll be doing. And we can go back and forth about particular players, but it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'll be having content even throughout the off season. So there's really no off season for fantasy football. If you're new to the hobby, appreciate y'all. So there we go. There we go, Slammy. You're welcome. Yeah, appreciate you. Eric, with Christian Washington probably sitting, Jahan Dotson or Zay Jones as the wide receiver too. I'm going Jahan Dotson. Terry McLaurin does not seem to get a target share from Carson Wentz. And instead, Jahan Dotson is very much a player that is on my radar. If we look over the last 3 weeks that Jahan Dotson has played, he's finished as the wide receiver 18 or better in each of the last 3 games. And then in the first 4 weeks, Jahan Dotson, 3 of his first 4 games, he was wide receiver 22 or better. So yeah, I think that you're starting Jahan Dotson this week against a Cleveland secondary that, it can give up fantasy points. So yeah, I would go with Jahan Dotson. It seems like Carson Wentz has an eye for Dotson. And Dotson has a knack for the end zone as well. He has 7 touchdowns on the season in 10 games. So, this is very much an interesting play. I would trust the first round pick, Jahan Dotson, over Zay Jones. Serendipity trick shots with the affirmation. If y'all jump into commenting on my videos, unless I'm on the live stream, I usually try to get back to you within the hour or so based on your comments, and always wish you the best of luck because, people will say in fantasy football, oh, this is all luck. It's not all luck, right? Or else there would be nothing to talk about. We're just talking about luck. Ha ha ha. No, a third of it is drafting players, right? You draft the right players. A third of it is drafting the right players, setting yourself up with a solid foundation of players. A third of it. Another third of it is making the right roster management moves throughout the season. Right? Are you dropping and picking up the right players? Are you starting and sitting the right players? Are you trading for or trading away the right players? A third of it is roster management. And then, yes, a third of it is luck, right? There's just such a wide range of outcomes for a lot of these players, and injuries happen, and suspensions happen, or unannounced soft benchings happening. Like, don't even get me started on the Deion Jackson thing. Okay, fine. I will get started on the Deion Jackson thing. Evidently, there was some unsubstantiated reporting done that came out during the game that the reason why Deion Jackson was benched was because he and Jeff Saturday got into a shouting match during film sessions. Now, that is unconfirmed, but it's those types of things that would scare me away from suggesting start Deion Jackson, right? Jackson finished with 3 catches for 9 yards, and his first reception went for -9 yards. Zach Moss got the majority of the take. So, I try my best to get back to you with the best information that I have at hand. And maybe it comes across as a little bit wishy-washy, but I am conscious of, I'm trying to give you the most thoughtful response, and that there is a range of outcomes, that it's not. One of the things I've learned in fantasy football is that it's not just this player's good, this player's bad, because what I've found is I've had strong takes on players and I've been wrong. And you ask any fantasy analyst, right? They've had strong takes on players and they've been wrong. And any fantasy analyst who said they've never been wrong on any player, they're full of it, right? You unsubscribe from their channel, right? But what I want to offer you is what is the most likely outcome given this range of outcomes and given this scenario, given all the factors that I'm aware of, so that you can make the best decision for your lineup. So I appreciate all of you jumping into the comments, hitting that subscribe button if you like the content and find it helpful. And I'll be posting more 2-minute videos on should you start certain players, especially these Thursday night players, either tonight or tomorrow morning. Doris asks, subscribe, pick 2 out of Metcalf, Devonta Smith, Godwin, and Judy non-PPR. It's going to be pretty hard to sit Devonta Smith. He's been a top 3 wide receiver, over the past few weeks. There's been actually some chatter about how A.J. Brown and and Devonta Smith have been just arguably the two best wide receiver tandems in the league this season. If we look over the past 4 games, Devonta Smith has at least 8 targets, at least 5 receptions, and has finished at worst the wide receiver 17 over each of the last 4 weeks. 3 of the last 4 weeks, at least 102 receiving yards, and he has 4 touchdowns over the last 4 games. So I think you're going with Devonta Smith here. Yeah, he's got the touchdown upside. It's against New Orleans, which we just saw Amari Cooper in some of the worst weather go 6 for 72. So yeah, I think that Devonta Smith is a really, really nice play, and there's touchdowns to be had in this game against New Orleans. Serendipity Trick Shots agrees with me. No Derrick Henry in the league championship. Need some waiver wire pickups. Yeah, so a couple deep league considerations. Hassan Haskins, of course, is the natural handcuff. I think that he's going to be the guy who gets the majority of snaps, majority of carries, majority of touches. This is a player, 4th round pick out of the University of Michigan, who ran for over 1,200 yards his final season at Michigan, caught 18 of 20 passes, and almost all of those came in the second half of the season. Where Haskins was really involved at 2 or 3 targets pretty much every game. And if you're unaware of how college goes, like, running backs usually aren't as involved in the passing game. So for Haskins to get 2 or 3 targets per game near the end of the season, that's a testament to him improving as a player throughout the season. Also, yeah, he caught 18 of 20 passes, so a 90% catch rate at his final season at Michigan. He had a 72 PFF receiving grade his final season at Michigan. So that was, a pretty good number. I'm happy with that. And if I'm picking a guy who's 6'2", 228, right, who has draft capital, I'm pegging him over an undrafted free agent who's like 5'11", 228. I think that Hassan Haskins is the preferred player. Plus, he's been the preferred player. He has twice as many carries as Julius Chestnut on the season. So I think, Roman, I think I'm leaning that way. If you're trying to pick up players off the waiver wire, let me also see if there's a few other trending players that I could recommend. Right now, Isaiah Hodgins, of course, is a hot name. I love Isaiah Hodgins. He was, I was on the GOAT District podcast a couple weeks ago, and they asked me for a deep cut league winner, and I said Isaiah Hodgins. And Isaiah Hodgins has been wide receiver 22 or better in 3 of the last 4 weeks. So you tell me. Greg Dortch is also very interesting, but I am concerned that how replicable that is. Wide receiver 8, in week 16. I wonder how replicable that is. The Robbie Anderson really didn't do much in that week 15 game against Denver, and Dortch was coming off the thumb injury against New England. So, I maybe Greg Dortch, Jahan Dotson, of course, Tyler Algier, of course, depends on the size of the league as well. Cam Akers, naturally. I'm just looking at some of the biggest trending players here. If you need volume, Zach Moss is there. Drake London has been an interesting. I know that these players are probably rostered in your league, but these are some of the most trending waiver ads this week. DJ Chark is interesting to me. I'm not as in on Kendrick Bourne as other players. I had a lot of him in best ball drafts at the beginning of the season before the season started, but this was finally the game that he hit. It was the first game he had over 60 receiving yards, week 16 against Cincinnati. Only 57% of the snaps, but you'll take it there. Richie James is an interesting cut if you don't want to roll with Isaiah Hodgins. And then Rashid Shaheed, of course. I'm in on Rashid Shaheed. So there you go, Roman. Those are some players that you could consider in your waiver wire as interesting eyebrow-raising pickups. K-Oxide. Let's see. Need 2 of Pickens, Slayton, Singletary, Peoples-Jones, PPR, and Haskins as well. Let's get a little spicy here. I'm going to throw Haskins in as a start here. Even in PPR, I think that's interesting. Let's see here. As when it comes to wide receivers, let's see. I have Pickens right now tentatively at 37. His consensus is at 37, so that's pretty nice. Slayton is at 38, so right behind Pickens. But one of the things to note for the New York Giants as they're facing the Indianapolis Colts is Isaiah Rodgers, the star cornerback, the shutdown cornerback for the Colts, was placed on IR. And that was underreported, I think, this week. So I think you need to be a little bit more optimistic about the New York Giants relative to how they had been in the past. I think that Darius Slayton, is in that same tier. And then Donovan Peoples-Jones at 42. So I'd go Pickens, Slayton, Donovan Peoples-Jones if I'm ranking the wide receivers. But then Devin Singletary is running back 27 right now against Cincinnati on Monday night. I think you're going to probably have to just wait out the sweat against Cincinnati. This is a game that could turn into a real nice slugfest. And the over-under is 49.5. And looking at the rest of the game totals, there's only one other game that, there's two other games that get close to it. It's the second highest over-under on the week. The Bears are at 52 over-under against the Lions. And then Minnesota Vikings at Green Bay is over-under 48. So this is the second highest over-under. That's what I would say is Singletary and then Pickens. But it's really close between Pickens and Slayton. Okay, I have two questions. Taysom Hill or Hurst at tight end, Teddy Bridgewater or Russ at quarterback. I had Tua, RIP. Yeah, so I'd go Taysom Hill over Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst, even if he plays, is not someone that I'm really interested in. Give me Taysom Hill. Given that they're facing Philadelphia, they're going to have to manufacture offense against the Eagles. Taysom Hill has finished as the tight end 8 or better each of the last 3 weeks. He's had double-digit fantasy points in each of the last 3 weeks. So you have to be happy with that. And, 11, 10, and 12 fantasy points. Not unhappy about what Taysom Hill has done for you there. So you're firing up Taysom Hill at tight end. And then Teddy Bridgewater or Russell Wilson. And Bridgewater, if we look at what he had done this year, he had finished against Cincinnati 14 for 23. He had a touchdown, quarterback 24, but then against Minnesota, which was a really, really generous secondary, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, finishes the quarterback 7, 329 passing yards. So Teddy gets the New England Patriots this week. Not super ideal, not ideal at all. But Russell Wilson gets the Kansas City Chiefs this week, and that is a plus matchup. The last time that Russ faced the Chiefs, remember, was week 14, and Russ went 23 of 36 for 247 passing yards. He had 3 touchdowns in that game, finishes the quarterback 3. So I think I am going with Russell Wilson in this game. They're just going to let it fly, let Russ cook. What does the head coach have to lose? Like the interim head coach, Nathaniel Hackett is out. Cortland Sutton might play. Jerry Jeudy might play. There we go. So that's what I would go. Mike Kai from YouTube. Appreciate you jumping in the comments. QQ set my lineup for me. Man, that's up to you, QQ. I appreciate the honors, but ultimately it's going to come down to you. I can give you some advice, but that's ultimately up to you to set it for yourself. I wouldn't take that away from you. All right, awesome, everyone. Appreciate y'all jumping into the comments, watching, listening. If you are new and haven't hit that red subscribe button, make sure you do. It's right there. I appreciate all of you who have subscribed, who have joined in on the adventure, the journey, the growth of this community, Best Bell Fantasy Football. Appreciate all of you having jumped in. Yeah, QQ saying having difficulty with running backs and wide receivers. Yeah, drop those in. Let's see what they are, and we'll go from there, all right? Let's see here. Okay, I think QQ is typing. Nevertheless, yeah, So this has been a lot of fun this year. We're getting into week 17, and then make sure, put in the comments, let me know if you are wanting some week 18 content. If you want some week 18 content, let me know. Or if you want me to just focus primarily on playoff best ball, we can do that. And some playoff DFS as well is going to be on the docket for when we get into playoff time. There's going to be less content because less players are playing, of course, but I'll still be pumping out content, still trying to get y'all information and some of the best thoughtfulness in the industry in the process. So, and I'll take a moment and I'll say that I finished as a top 12 ranker this past week on the Fantasy Pros Extra Rankings contest. Finished as the third best tight end ranker, and this is out of about 200 rankers. This is the third time I finished in the top 15 this season, so not bad at all. I'm right now at 45 out of about 200 rankers, so the top quarter of rankers accuracy in the industry. And look, I'm just a humble guy streaming from my basement, trying to grow this hobby that I have into maybe something a little bit bigger. But nevertheless, this has been a lot of fun. And, I've seen some success, and y'all, I'm sure, have seen success as well this season. So I'm happy that we have joined with each other for this year. Mike Kai is asking, who's my favorite player? For football, like, who do I like playing football the best? And prime Aaron Rodgers, I don't think there's a better talent. I as a Green Bay Packers player, like, y'all can have opinions of Rodgers outside of, the confines of the gridiron. Fine. Like, neither here nor there. But I think when it comes to watching the prettiest balls being thrown, the most accurate plays, Aaron Rodgers has just been such a treat to watch and so fun. And there's a story behind the jersey behind me. So the Bakhtiari jersey I got signed, and David Bakhtiari was once asked, how far do you think Aaron Rodgers can throw the ball? Like, how far do you think he can throw? And Bakhtiari was responding. He said, somewhere between 68 and 70 yards. So that's a lot of fun. But I also take a lot of pride in not just Aaron Rodgers, but also Robert Tonyan. Robert Tonyan won me a lot of money a few years ago during his breakout season because I pegged him as a breakout star. I in the preseason, I selected him as a tight end breakout for the year, and I hit. This was the year where he had double-digit touchdowns and had a really nice season. So who am I really grateful for? Robert Tonyan. That's been a player I'm in on. All right. QQ said the running backs are Dalvin, Pacheco, Algier, Swift, Mostert. Man, you got a lot of good running backs there. Diggs, Devontae, Dotson, Lazard. Defenses are Colts and Miami. Yikes, Colts and Miami. That's kind of disastrous. Yikes. The Colts are projected to give up 22 points to the New York Giants. The Miami Dolphins are projected to, where are they? Where did they go? Are projected to give up what, like 21 as well. So it's not looking good. I don't know. Probably go with the Miami Dolphins. That's what I would go with if I had to pick between those two, but it's kind of ugly. And then you're starting Dalvin Cook against the Green Bay Packers. I would start Algier over Pacheco this week, but Swift has more upside than either of those two running backs. Depends on what you're projected at. Algier is, I think, the safer pick between Algier and Swift. But I think Swift has more upside. Diggs, you're starting Diggs, you're starting Devonta, and I'm starting Dotson over Lazard if you have to start 3 wide receivers. That's how I would go, QQ. Okay, Eric Fortis. How would you go about my lineup? Let's see. Fields and Hurts. You're going to start Fields because Hurts is probably not going to play. Jefferson, St. Brown, Kirk, Juju, Debo. I don't think Debo is going to play in this game. I would start Juju over Kirk is how I would roll with this. Mixon, McKinnon, Elliott, Walker, Mason. Yeah, we just saw an update on the. It's cool seeing the DraftKings do the live updates. Nevertheless, you're starting Mixon. You're starting but hold on, Eric. With all of these running backs, I'm starting Elliott over all of them if we find out Tony Pollard doesn't play tomorrow. So you're going to get some clarity right away of whether Tony Pollard starts or not. If Tony Pollard does not play, Elliott becomes an immediate start, and then I would start Elliott and probably Joe Mixon with maybe McKinnon there as well as a flex consideration over Walker. Walker is going to get volume, is going to be leaned heavily upon, but it is the New York Jets who are a really tough defense to get efficiency from. And then Schultz, Goddard, you're definitely going with Dallas Goedert. And right off the bat, Dallas Goedert was a tight end that I was confident in playing even first game off of the IR. So, and Dallas Goedert right now against the New Orleans Saints. And I know New Orleans doesn't give up a lot of fantasy points to opposing tight ends. He's consensus tight end 7. Goddard, first game out of the IR, 3 for 67 and finishing as the tight end 12. Dallas Goedert in his 10 games has finished below tight end 13 once. Yeah, you're going with Dallas Goedert, I think, over Schultz in this matchup. Okay, there we go. Keep rocking with the in-depth content. Cheers, Eric. Good luck in your championship. Appreciate you jumping into the comments and your questions. Appreciate you. Okay. QQ said that he took all the good defenses, froze them out. So Swift or Dotson in the flex. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Dotson. I think that's a safer play. Like, obviously Swift has top 5, top 7 running back upside, but his floor is just so much scarier. And I think Dotson he's going to be a top 24 wide receiver for this week, right? Like, I don't think that should be a hot take. I'm whispering it because I don't want other people to hear me too loudly. Because right now, Jahan Dotson is the wide receiver 33 in consensus on Fantasy Pros, and I don't understand why he's that low. Like, you're starting him over Zay Jones, you're starting him over Deontay Johnson, you're starting him over Gabe Davis, you're starting him over, Drake London, you're starting him over Alan Lazard and Adam Thielen, Jacoby Myers, starting him over Hollywood, right? That's where I would go with Dotson. So yeah, that's that. I would go with Dotson. Swift has, I think, the higher ceiling, like the highest ceiling, but Dotson is just, his range is so set because we know he's going to get targets from Carson Wentz. Cool beans. Well, everyone, I've answered all of your questions. Cheers and good luck with week 17. I may be having live streams later on in the week. So if you want to jump into those and it gets closer to the time and you want to ask more questions, you're starting to check it out a little bit. I know I get those butterflies sometimes, like, oh, should I start him or him? I get it. Hop in the live stream. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Appreciate y'all doing that. Oh, we got some Hail Mary questions from I Eat Cake 33. Okay, Evans, Judy, AJ Dillon, Dotson, or Najee. Need a running back and need a flex. You're starting Najee over AJ Dillon for sure. Okay, and then do we go Dotson, Judy, or Mike Evans? Oh man, the fact that we're getting into Dotson or Mike Evans, let's talk about Mike Evans for a second. We haven't done that in a bit. Mike Evans has finished no better than the wide receiver 32 for the last 7 games. Yeah, you're starting Jahan Dotson over Mike Evans against Carolina. Last time Mike Evans went 9 for 96 and on 15 targets, but we haven't seen 10 targets for Mike Evans since week 9. Okay, we've seen a couple 9s sprinkled in, but the inefficiency is there. Evans only 3 for 29 against a very generous Arizona secondary. So, I think Jahan Dotson over Mike Evans is the right call. And then I think that, Jerry Jeudy, this injury we're monitoring closely, right? He was limited in practice on Wednesday with an ankle injury. Judy's been dealing with ankle injuries as of late. And I know he finishes the wide receiver 15 this past week against the Rams, 6 for 117, but he had a big play. And then left the game. So I think that we're still going Jahan Dotson over Jerry Jeudy unless we hear that Jeudy is full go and Jeudy is ready, set to play, and Courtland Sutton isn't going to play. If Courtland Sutton plays and Courtland Sutton is full go, yeah, it's Jahan Dotson. So I'm finding reasons to get Jahan Dotson into my fantasy lineup this week. I think that we can move around Jeudy and Dotson to get him there. Connor from YouTube, DJ Moore, Leonard Fournette, Kamara, Zeke, Terry, start 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're benching 2 of them. We're benching 2. Yeah. I think we're benching Terry McLaurin. I know McLaurin has finished as the wide receiver 14 or better 2 of the last 3 weeks, but the concern is that Carson Wentz does not target Terry McLaurin almost at all. Carson Wentz has I think McLaurin has somewhere in the neighborhood of like a 20% target share with Carson Wentz, which is not going to get it done against Cleveland. So I'm not looking to start Terry McLaurin. I'm looking to not start him. And then Alvin Kamara, I think, is your fade this week. Yes, he'll get the volume, but the Philadelphia Eagles are a pretty tough defense. And, I'm not looking to do that. Leonard Fournette showed what he had, and then Tampa Bay gets Carolina. So I'm still firing up Leonard Fournette there. Zeke is an auto start if Pollard sits. That's how I'm viewing it. So DJ Moore, Leonard Fournette, and Ezekiel Elliott are my 3 for you there, Connor. Best of luck with those, and hopefully you get clarity on the Zeke situation very soon. Okay, Muscle March Fitness, play Josh Jacobs, plus 20 this week. I don't know. We might. It depends on who you have, right? Derek Carr just, got benched, and so the concern is that Josh Jacobs already had tough matchup against San Francisco. The 49ers give up the fewest fantasy points to opposing running backs. Jacobs has finished as the running back 20 or worse each of the last 2 weeks. Against Pittsburgh, 15 for 44, 1 catch for 6 yards. That's a problem. So Josh Jacobs, a really, really, really tough matchup. And the offense is probably not going to be moving as well with Jarrett Stidham at quarterback. You may not have better options to start Josh Jacobs, but you need to lower expectations pretty significantly. I don't understand why he's the running back 7 on the week right now. I can't get behind that. I don't know what the lowest ranker is. Let me find out who the lowest ranker is on Josh Jacobs, but I can't even fathom him being like a top 12 option this week, right? I think a lot of players are moving him into the 14, 15, 16 range. And I think that's a fair spot for him at this juncture. Okay. Sup, my dude, full PPR, Kenneth Walker, Kamara, Rashad White, Najee Harris, Jay Williams. I assume Jamal Williams. Yeah. We're not starting Jamal Williams this week. He did get cleared to practice. I think he was declared healthy, even though he has a leg injury that he's dealing with. So I'm not starting Jamal Williams. Rashad White is the lowest of the others. And so it comes down to Walker, Kamara, or Najee Harris. Okay. And Walker right now is the consensus running back 12, despite finishing the running back 20 or worse each of the last 3 weeks. And in 5 of the last 7 weeks. That's concerning to me. So Kenneth Walker is a player that in PPR, he had that 6 catch game for 55 yards and 8 targets against Tampa. But since then, 3 of his last 4 games, 2 targets or fewer. So if you're trying to get PPR upside, Kamara's the play. And then Najee Harris gets Baltimore, which is also a tough matchup. I think you're going to have to go with Kamara and Walker, but Najee Harris is also just in that same tier. So it's not Williams, it's not White. And if I'm picking between Walker, Kamara, and Harris, I'm probably going with Walker and Kamara. Che. So appreciate you tuning in from YouTube. Jose, great show as always. Bradley, hit that like button. Yeah, and those who are new to the show and like the content and find it helpful, make sure you hit that red subscribe button. Jose's done it, and so should you if you like the content. And of course, I'm answering questions if you put them in the comments. I'll be here for another couple minutes if you want. Edward, I see your comment in there. I'll get to it in just a moment. Appreciate your patience. Yeah, this is a lot of fun. I love doing these multiple times throughout the week. So thanks, Jose, for tuning in. Thanks, everyone else, for tuning in. It's been a lot of fun this season. As I mentioned earlier in the live stream, this channel has grown from about 50, 60 subscribers to over 600 now on the channel. So I appreciate all y'all jumping in. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It really helps me, but it'll also help you as you get tuned into the flow of fantasy football. And that way you're more informed as you get prepared throughout the off season. Edward, if Edward, if Jamal Williams and Pollard are out, which I think Williams plays, but I'm not looking to start him. I'm looking for other flex positions. Who would you choose? 3 full PPR: Kamara, Waddle, Godwin, Zeke, Swift, McKinnon. You're starting Zeke if Pollard is out. You're starting Waddle. And then it comes down to Kamara, McKinnon, or Godwin, or Swift. And if I'm picking in full PPR between those 3, I think it's got to be Chris Godwin. Right? Mid-pack wide receiver 2. He gets double-digit targets almost every single game. I know Brady has struggled this year, but it's against the Carolina Panthers. And, I'm in on Tom Brady, always making that little push to the comeback. We've seen a few different comebacks in the short term, but long term, Godwin is the consensus wide receiver 13 on the week. And, he's had at least 8 targets in all but 2 games. In the 2 games he didn't was that first game back from the ACL tear. And then in week 5 against Atlanta, 6 for 61. So, I think I'm going to go with Chris Godwin in full PPR here. He's finished 12 for 110, 8 for 63, 5 for 54, 8 for 83, 8 for 63. And, always he's going to give you that double-digit fantasy points. So I'm going with Waddle, Zeke, and Godwin. Start or sit Josh Jacobs with a change in quarterback. I mean, it depends on who you have, right? Josh Jacobs, for me, is probably going to end up in that mid to low running back 2, probably running back 18 to 20 once the dust settles as we get closer to it. But it depends on who you have. And you may or may not have 2 of 17 other running backs. You may be into having to force to start Josh Jacobs against a tough 49ers defense who doesn't give up a lot of fantasy points to opposing running backs. So depends on who you have, but I'm not afraid to sit Josh Jacobs this week. Should I start Zeke even though I have CD in? Yeah, you can start Zeke even though you have CD Lamb in. I mean, CD Lamb has finished with 120 receiving yards each of the last 2 weeks, and that hasn't stopped Ezekiel Elliott from being a top 16 running back each of those weeks. And I know it's against Tennessee, but have you seen the injury report for the Tennessee Titans? Yeah, I have. And all of their star defensive players are on the out list. So you're fine starting Ezekiel Elliott. Even with CD Lamb in, that's fine. I have Josh, Chubb, and Pacheco. I have to sit one. You're starting Chubb, right? Nick Chubb, despite the fact that he's dealing with that foot deal and it's a tougher matchup against Washington. Chubb right now, he's the running back 9 in consensus, but it's significantly ahead of where I would have Josh Jacobs. And then Pacheco's all the way down at like running back 25, 26 for me. And Pacheco's finished running back 26 and running back 37 the last 2 weeks. So I think that I would start Josh Jacobs over Pacheco. Yeah, but it's pretty close. And the fact that we have to talk about that is a problem for Josh Jacobs. So I think the floor is a lot scarier for Jacobs. So it depends on what you need. Maybe that's the response. I think I'll go with that. If you need someone who's safe, I'll go with Pacheco. But if you need an upside back, like we've seen Josh Jacobs just out of nowhere or against tough defenses have these big games. Like, Seattle 33 for 229, right? And 2 touchdowns, 6 for 74. Even against Denver, 24 for 109. This is and Denver once again, 28 for 144. So I think Josh Jacobs, he's the more upside play, but Pacheco's safer. So if you're in a close matchup, I would not risk it with Josh Jacobs. I would start Pacheco if it's a close matchup. If you are projected to lose by a lot, I mean, you're going to roll with Josh Jacobs. All right. Well, that seems to be all the questions for tonight. I appreciate all of you tuning in. Thank you so much. Make sure to hit that red subscribe button if you are new and you like the content. And we got a Hail Mary toss from A Life of Choi. My last one, Romeo Doubs or Jacoby or Drake. I have to sit one. I assume, is that Drake London? I assume it's Drake London. I'm sitting Doubs between Jacoby, Drake London, and Romeo Doubs. Yeah, I'm starting Jacoby Myers and Drake London, not Kenyon Drake. I'm not playing Kenyon Drake in week 17. All right, thanks, Life of Choi. Appreciate all of you, and until next time, good luck in the fantasy football streets. Good luck with Thursday Night Football. And, we got one more Hail Mary Prophet official. Should I start Lazard, Myers, DJ Chark, or DPJ? We're starting DJ Chark this week against the Chicago Bears for sure. And then I think I'm also, I'll check my rankings here real quick, but I think I'm leaning Jacoby Myers over Lazard. Let me just double check. No. We're going to go with Lazard over Myers. Given the matchup against the Minnesota Vikings. So let's go with DJ Chark and Lazard, bench Myers, bench Donovan Peoples-Jones. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. Appreciate y'all. Until next time, good luck in the fantasy football streets, everyone.
I embrace all this risk, I'm insane. Talking about that best bill, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Guess I got next still. Best bill, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Guess I got next still.